Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, they're talking about movies. And you know they are really groovy. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, they're talking about movies. And we know they are really groovy.
Two guys and a gal. I just love that Diane call. And yes, I am feeling kind of groovy. I think we're all very groovy. And we have such a treat for you this evening. All of you people out there in live land and you people on the replay, whom we value just as much as the live audience. You guys are all part of the show. So thank you for the feedback, for the comments, for the DMs, for all of your support as we continue to go in this fantastic show. Tonight, I say we have a treat for everyone because we do have a subject that everyone has an opinion about and everyone has been exposed to. Everybody knows and loves, of course, the character created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Scottish author and physician. And his name, of course, is Sherlock Holmes. When you think of detective stories, when you think of mysteries, when you think of murders and sleuths, it all goes back in our minds to Sherlock Holmes. So the guys are going to break down their favorite movies, their favorite characters, and one of your hosts has actually played Dr. Watson before, and we have a couple of pictures for you that are coming up. So stand by, and let me introduce your guys, your hosts, Manny Zamora and Rory Penland. Hi, guys.
How's it going?
Hello.
Hello, Mike. And of course, Manny is there in his.
Yes, I'm here in my drawing room, when I do my consultations and
and I'm here in my black void.
You are in the black void.
In the void.
You're
but
right.
I'm lit well.
I'm lit too, but we won't tell you
we
how.
Won't go there.
We won't go there. I want to say, so I did get to. I went to Oxford University for a while, and I lived in England, and I did get to go to the Sherlock Holmes Museum. And Manny, it looks exactly like that. That's basically what it looks like when you go there, and they have all of these wax figures of him and all of the different props from the different stories. It looks exactly like that. And just another little thing I want to throw out there, because yes, I'm definitely bragging, is that I also got to spend a weekend at the manor that Baskervilles, it's called Baskervilles Manor or something, someone can Google that, where it's based on sort of the idea behind it. And yes, it's on the moors, and yes, it's very spooky and very scary and very haunted. So it kind of looks like something out of Harry Potter. There's all these recesses and hallways, and you kind of get lost all the time, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. But that's cool. I think that's.
I would love that.
Yes. So I think we should all go. We should get funding to all go.
I think so.
Out there in check it out in England. Anyways,
we are in more danger here than we've ever been before.
Of course. So now, do we want to unveil which one of you has played Dr. Watson, or do you want to do that later in the show? What do you guys think?
Up to you. You're
Manny?
The director.
Well,
you're Mrs. Hudson.
Mrs. Hudson.
Mrs. Hudson.
David said, I feel like Manny and Renee look like they're really slumming with the rest of us now. We are, but we allow it, David. We allow it, David.
Yes.
Yeah,
let's show them now. Let's just get
it. All right. So okay, guys, drum rolls, please. The one
bucket of fish.
The one of the two guys who played Dr. Watson, and we have photo evidence. That one. All right, this guy right here.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Gingerlock Holmes is watching. Thank you, Pan. All right. Let's put up. Tell us a little bit about your experience playing Dr. Watson.
We were doing a show up at Lake City Community College, now Gateway College, and I got to play Dr. Watson because I was the director of the show. And it was really a series of scenes from different detective stories. And we did the first scene, the drawing room scene, from The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. And Holmes was played by my good friend, Jim Moss, rest in peace. I'm sorry. Oh my God. I can't believe Jim Morris. I have a
That was
friend named Jim
awkward.
Moss and a friend named Jim Morris.
That was very awkward. I hope he doesn't die now.
Well, he's already gone. I'm sorry.
Okay, I mean the other one. Okay.
The other one. Yeah, really. Jim Morris, very good friend of mine. He did a wonderful Holmes, and I got to play Watson next to him. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun playing that scene because that's a very fun scene. We're going to talk about that movie later.
And how old were you here?
I was about 21.
Adorable.
21.
Absolutely adorable. And you look the same. You look identical.
Thank you.
I cannot. It's uncanny. Yes.
So yeah, again, this show is a wonderful show for me because I love Sherlock Holmes and Watson. They've been played so many times in so many movies by so many different duos. It's everybody loves Holmes and Watson. They really do.
Yeah.
They've been played a zillion times by a zillion different actors, and they're fun to watch. They're fun. Holmes is brilliant, and Watson is different in each incarnation. Watson's changed from comic relief to very, very serious, loyal friend. We've seen all very different incarnations of Watson. Again, he goes from one end of the spectrum to the other as far as comedy to drama. So starting with Basil Rathbone, when he played Holmes, we had Nigel Bruce as his Watson, and I think they did like 14 of those films. And Watson was the comic relief in those Universal. Yeah. Well, actually, it started out in 20th Century Fox. The two best ones are the 20th Century Fox ones, the two first ones, and then they went to Universal Studios, and then Universal Studios was like, they ain't gonna pay a lot of money for these movies, so they upgraded it to where Holmes was in the 1940s and he was like fighting Nazis. It's crazy.
Yeah, and David pointed out too, and that's a really good thing. The arc wasn't Watson really the genius in some depictions of the shows.
Actually, the one movie, it was a comedy. It was a great comedy, with Michael Caine playing Holmes, and see, this is why I try to write notes before the show. Watson was played by Gandhi. I
know.
And he's in the Marvel universe as
the Mandarin.
Ben Kingsley plays Watson, and Watson's the brilliant one, and Holmes is an idiot. He's an actor that he's hired to play Holmes, and it's called
Without a Clue.
Very, very funny take on Holmes, and just a wonderful watch. So not on my list because it's not technically really Holmes, but a very fun movie to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just you mentioned Basil Rathbone, and 14 movies from 1939 to 1942. Nigel Bruce, and I wanted to include at least one of them in my list, but as much as I love those movies, and I think that's really what got me into Sherlock Holmes growing up and seeing Rathbone. Nigel Bruce is just way too. He's too much comic relief for me. Exactly. Just not my favorite.
You're not going to disparage Nigel Bruce, are you?
No, not quite, but still.
He waffled a lot.
It's a little too, doddering and carrying on.
I don't have popcorn movies talking about pretzels. They should put pretzels. You should be able to get pretzels at the movies.
Yes, you should. Even though it's very crunchy and will disturb people around you, but that's okay.
That's probably why. Hey, why don't we offer Doritos at movies? No.
Hey, they're... Nah, not a good idea. It's bad enough people trying to open up little plastic packaging.
I understand.
So anyway, so yeah, shout out to Bruce, Bruce to Basil Rathbone, who I think he has, I guess, holds the record for most appearances as Sherlock Holmes in the movies, at least. Uh, Obviously, people played him on the TV series.
I think he's the most recognizable Sherlock Holmes. When you think of
most
Sherlock Holmes, you
recognizable,
cannot possibly not think of Basil Rathbone.
yeah, exactly.
He set the standard. He set the bar.
It set the standard. It's
There was another guy before him named
intelligible.
Wantner, but I've never seen any of his stuff. Wantner.
Yeah, that's like it's like in the
No.
20s, I think, or early 30s.
Well, no, actually, it was in the early 30s. Yeah, like 33,
early 30s,
35.
yeah,
But
before,
I think you
Rathbone.
can find him on YouTube, but I
Yeah.
haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, I think it's Wartner. But yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I'd like to see Hugh Laurie play Sherlock Holmes. I think he'd be a good Sherlock Holmes. He's got the look.
Yeah.
He's got that tall, lanky kind of look about him.
Right.
I just saw Christopher Lee this afternoon, just a few scenes from a movie that he did, or actually two movies that he did as Sherlock Holmes. And I'm sorry, he's just not Sherlock Holmes to me. Peter Cushing, oh yeah, all day long.
All day long, yep.
But and I think Cushing actually did a TV show as Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
My number one on my list is actually The Hound of the Baskervilles, 1958, the Hammer version, because Peter Cushing was so awesome as Sherlock Holmes. And Andre Morell was a great Watson. He did it dramatically.
Yeah,
and again, they played it like a horror film because that's what Hammer was doing at the time, and it was scary and moody, and it was a wonderful, wonderful movie. It's number one on my list. I've watched that movie so many times.
All right, well let's get into it.
Christopher Lee was Baskerville in that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's your number one. You want to talk any more about it?
Only that it's probably the greatest Sherlock Holmes movie ever made. I just love it. I love the lines. I mean, the script is so good. It's just moody and spooky, and the Hound is the most vicious I think you've ever seen in the films.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's on my list. It's not number one, but it's definitely on my list. Love Peter Cushing, love Christopher Lee, love the Hammer films. They were Dracula, they were Frankenstein. Now Cushing is Holmes, and like you said, Christopher Lee is so Charles Baskerville. And
see how they play up the wolf. It looks like a werewolf on the
yeah.
That's Hammer films for you.
Yeah. There have been, when we were doing some research on this, there have been over 20 different versions of Hound of the Baskervilles.
Wow.
And none of them hold a candle to the Hammer version. It's just, I saw an awful TV movie version with Stuart Granger as Holmes, and William Shatner, of all people, is in this movie as Stapleton. It's just terrible. Just really low budget. You can just tell it's just low budget, and I think it might have been a pilot for a possible show, and I'm glad it didn't sell. But anyway, so yeah,
I like the Basil Rathbone version. It's a shame it's in black and white, but I like the Basil Rathbone version. That was a good one. And I liked what they did on Sherlock with it, the TV show with Cumberbatch.
Right, yeah.
Making everything kind of an illusion, like a spoiler, sorry. A hallucination. That's what it was. That's what it meant to say.
Yeah. So
what was your number one?
All right. So my number one is actually, it's one that we already kind of discussed in an earlier show. It's the 7% Solution.
Yeah.
With Nicole Williamson as Sherlock Holmes, Robert Duvall as Dr. Watson, and Alan Arkin as Dr. Sigmund Freud, and have Vanessa Redgrave as the mystery woman.
Yeah. Duvall being Watson in this actually bumped it off my top five list.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah, because
okay.
I just didn't buy him as Watson at all. I just didn't
Yeah,
like his Watson.
yeah. He had that. It's not as bad as Keanu and Dracula, but it's, which we should make another little meme thing.
Well, it's not as
Uh,
bad as Keanu and Dracula.
but it's not as bad as Keanu and Dracula. Talk about accents. Um, yeah, I do agree with you on that, but to me, the rest of the cast makes up for it. And yeah, it's not as bad as Dudley Smoochie. Uh, and you also have Jeremy Kemp in the movie, which is a
Yes,
great British. He always plays the evil German.
he loves.
Uh,
He's a good villain.
he's a good villain in that. Joel Grey is in it. Charles Gray is in it. Blofeld from Bond.
Yeah, he plays Mycroft.
He plays Mycroft, right? Yeah, and like I said, Vanessa Redgrave, who
He's
the mystery woman.
he's one of the best Mycrofts. He did it in two different Sherlock Holmes movies.
Mhm.
Or was he Mycroft in the TV show with Jeremy Brett? Maybe. I know he's done it twice.
I don't remember.
I know he's done it twice.
Yeah, he may have been on, and so I don't know.
Mhm.
But anyway, so yeah,
He's a
so that's
great
my number
Mycroft.
one. I think it's an interesting take. It's a very different take on Holmes, and it's based on a novel by Nicholas Meyer, who actually wrote 5 books or pastiches of the Sherlock Holmes with Sherlock Holmes in it. The other, I don't know why the other 4 haven't been made into movies either.
Wow.
He
Yeah, I
also
knew he did that one. Nicholas Meyer's a screenwriter. I mean, he
yeah,
writes movies and stuff.
screenwriter.
He did a couple of Star Trek films.
He did directed Star Trek 2 and 6. He also
No.
wrote the screenplay for Time After Time with Malcolm McDowell and David Warner, which
Yeah, that's
one
Jack
of
the
the best
Ripper.
time travel movies. Yeah, he's a time traveler. So anyway, yeah, he's a good writer, and I remember reading the book years ago, and when the movie came out, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I got to see the movie," and I was not disappointed. I thought, yeah, they followed the story. I think he also co-wrote the screenplay, so yeah, that made it more faithful to his book. But Nicole Williamson, I thought was a really good Sherlock Holmes, and of course Alan Arkin. You know, we discussed him.
Alan Arkin as Freud made that
as
movie.
Freud. Yeah,
He really did.
he did. And Samantha Agar played Mary Watson, Watson's wife. So great cast. Yeah, with maybe the exception of Robert Duvall. Yeah, I think they could have.
He's a great actor, but
Yeah, totally wrong for that part.
yeah, I just didn't see Watson when I saw him.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was my number one. All right. So what was your number 2?
I have to give Jeremy Brett his props because he is one of the greatest Sherlock Holmes throughout history. Jeremy Brett was an awesome, quirky Holmes. So I put down The Last Vampire because there was only a couple of those that were made into movies.
Right.
It was mostly a TV show. So that one was the best of the couple, the handful that were actually made into movies.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Brett and Edward Hardwicke are really top-notch Holmes and Watson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't include Jeremy in my list because I'd forgotten that he had actually made a movie. I just thought of him from the TV show, but to me, I would say that, in just my opinion, that Brett is the definitive Holmes as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, so a lot of other actors have been really good, but
He's
Brett,
the best.
just yeah, I mean, he really nailed that characterization. It really felt like this is the guy from the Conan Doyle books, you know. And Harwood, was a great, yeah. And I loved that Watson wasn't portrayed, you know, in the Nigel Bruce vein.
Holmes.
Exactly. He was just as dynamic, and I
He's
mean
just a loyal
Watson
friend,
is, yeah, a loyal friend.
and he's
He's
along for the ride.
and he's an ex-military guy, so you know, and he knows his way around a fight, and you know, he's wounded in Afghanistan and all that, and so anyway, yeah, good, 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 good.
So you're number 2.
My number 2 is Murder by Decree with
Okay.
Christopher Plummer.
All right.
Christopher Plummer and James Mason as Holmes and Watson.
It made my honorable mention list only because James Mason was playing Watson. I don't like it when pretty boys play Holmes. Okay, he's not supposed to be a pretty boy. So I felt Christopher Plummer, and even worse so with Roger Moore playing him in Sherlock Holmes in New York City.
In New York City, yeah.
Patrick McNee played his Watson. Patrick McNee is the only actor that's played Watson with 2 different Holmeses, by the way, I think.
Yeah.
He did with Christopher Lee as well.
Christopher Lee, right? Yeah. Incident at
but
Victoria Falls, I think.
But
I saw
you
that
just
one.
see Roger Moore. I'm like, that's James Bond. It's not. It's not Sherlock Holmes. It's James Bond.
Right.
He's a pretty boy, and I felt the same way about Christopher Plummer. I felt like he just didn't seem like the Holmes that you get from the stories. To me.
Okay. Fair enough.
And I wasn't a big fan of that screenplay either for that movie, the story.
Really?
I mean, it was the Jack the Ripper story again.
Yeah.
Which we had already gotten in A Study in Terror in the 60s.
Yeah.
With John Neville, and Daniel. I think it's Daniel Houston. I'm not reading my notes correctly.
David Houston.
David Houston.
Yeah.
Donald Houston.
Oh, Don. What we're both on. Donald
and
Houston, right.
the only Sherlock Holmes movie that has Judi Dench in it.
Right. Yeah. And both. Interesting that you brought that up because both Anthony Quayle and Frank Finley were in that movie, and they're also in Murder by Decree, different characters. No, actually,
Correct.
Frank Finley also plays Lestrade in both movies. But no, I definitely like
Anthony Quayle's in both of them. I don't remember Frank Finley being in Study of Terror.
Yeah,
so, but
he was Lestrade in that one.
Okay.
I do like that. If I remember correctly, Robert Morley played Mycroft in Study in Terror.
Yes.
And it was that great scene where Neville is just scraping on his fiddle and just driving Morley up the wall. How long does this go on for? It could be hours, could be days. So finally he leaves. I don't remember if there's a Moriarty in Murder by Decree, and I just watched it.
No.
But anyway, no, I actually, when I watched the movie many years ago when it first came out, and
right,
and it really stuck with me. And maybe that's why I liked it, because it just, it just made an impression.
Again, it's got a lot of good actors in it. It's got a really good like costume and design and set design and everything. I mean, it has a good look to it.
Yeah. Donald Sutherland is in it as a psychic. Yeah.
And again,
I think
James
what I
Mason
like
is Watson. Listen, Holmes.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the pistol along with me.
I don't know about you. There's one scene that I absolutely love, and it's the whole pea scene. I don't know if you've seen it, if you remember that. He's trying to he keeps jabbing at his plate, and he's trying to spear this one last pea on his plate, and Holmes just walks over, grabs his fork and squashes it, and just the look of disappointment on Watson's face, like, you squashed my pea. Squash your fellow's pea.
You squashed my pea.
Yeah, exactly, stuff like that. And I laughed. That was just one of the funniest scenes. But anyway, so Oh, well, what I want to say about the movie, looking at it now, it
Mhm.
almost reminds me of an X-Files episode. They had the whole government conspiracy and the
Mhm.
cover-up and all that. I mean, you could have
Yeah.
dropped Mulder and Scully into the story, and it would have played the same. So I thought that was interesting. But
Who
anyway,
is this annoying man and this red-headed woman? Watson, please be kind. Uh,
that was good.
number
All right,
three,
so number three.
I had to give Benedict Cumberbatch his due as well, and Martin Freeman for their take on Holmes and Watson,
Hmm.
with The Abominable Bride, which was
Yeah,
ironically the only movie made for that TV series, and it took Holmes back into Victorian era.
right, yeah.
So you could actually see them play the characters as they were meant to be played in that time.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the TV show Sherlock is brilliant, and Cumberbatch is awesome. Well, both of them are awesome in their characters.
Hmm.
Um, Freeman is comic relief, but it's not overdone. It's not waffly. I mean, it's done nicely. It's done brilliantly.
Yeah,
It's written well, so it's very subtle. And again, um, it's a great interpretation of Holmes and Watson.
yeah.
So I had to give them the props for that.
Awesome. Awesome.
What was
Okay.
your number three?
My number three is a movie called Mr. Holmes with Sir Ian McKellen as Sherlock Holmes. And this is probably the most different Sherlock Holmes movie that I've ever seen.
When I read the
McKellen,
synopsis to it, I decided not to watch it. I have
oh,
it,
yeah. But you didn't see it?
and I love Ian McKellen and his performances.
Hmm.
But when I read the subject matter of the film, I was like, I don't want to see Holmes like that.
Yeah, it is. It's very elegiac. It's very
Is there a Watson?
there is,
Mhm.
but you don't really see him. He's just kind of he's in a like a flashback sequence. Uh and
I see.
yeah, they they kind of keep him. You do see Mrs. Hudson for a little bit, but
Hmm.
so basically the movie's about Sherlock Holmes as an older man.
Yes.
He's retired. He's keeping bees, just like Conan Doyle wrote. And he's starting to lose his memory. And he is trying to remember this last case that he and Watson were on. Because again, he was like, well, of course, Watson, changed everything and blah blah blah, and like I said, he's starting to become a little bit more dementia, more senile, and he's
He's battling with Alzheimer's. Am I right?
battling with Alzheimer's, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I don't think they call it that, but
Okay.
and he's
Oh,
trying
because
all these.
Alzheimer's wasn't called Alzheimer's back in that time. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that
he's
didn't come until recently.
right. He's trying all sorts of cures. He goes to Japan to get this plant, and then there's great flashback to that, and
Mhm.
then you see the mystery also in flashbacks as he's remembering it. Uh, and much of the story is also about his housekeeper is played by Laura Linney, and she has a young son who sort of hero worships Holmes and kind of wants to be like him. He's very smart, and he's helping him take care of the bees and all this stuff. And so there's that plot. It's a beautiful film. It's just shot beautifully. I mean, yeah, it's a little sad to
Mhm.
see Holmes as this older man, but McKellen is just he makes it. I don't want to say palatable, but he plays it so brilliantly because he's such a great actor. And Laura Linney is excellent. We get a brief scene uh, with Mycroft. I don't remember who played him though, but um, anyway, I just think it's a great movie. I I would recommend it. I would suggest you watch it. Just I
All right,
know it's
I'll
probably,
watch
but
it.
yeah, just go ahead and watch it.
I had a lot of Holmes movies to catch up on for this show, so
Yeah.
when I read the subject matter, I was like, this is not one I think I'm going to want to watch this movie.
Yeah.
So, but I have it, so I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
See?
mean,
Yeah.
you may like it. After all, you may not like it. I mean, it's okay. But
I like good performances
yeah.
as well as, but I just didn't know if I would like seeing Holmes in that situation, and especially without Watson. All right. So number 4 on my list is The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
And that's Robert Stevens and Colin Blakely. Colin Blakely does play Watson for laughs.
Oh yeah.
But in this particular film, it's okay. I mean, it's well written.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of goes over the top a little bit, but Stevens is so good as Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Stevens is not really well known in British cinema. I mean, he's done some movies, did some horror movies early on, but this was probably his best performance of all time. He really was a very convincing Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
And the scenes at the beginning where they're setting up the reason why he's doing cocaine and why he's bored with life and there's no challenges anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's delightful. And again, it's Billy Wilder, so it's going to be entertaining.
Right. Yeah.
And they have the scene with the ballet dancer and then him, telling.
You mean Dr. Watson is your glass of tea? Yeah. Clive Rebel.
Watson, have you ever been cornered by a mad woman? Mycroft in this is played by Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
And very well done. And where is our Mrs. Hudson? Mrs. Hudson.
Yeah. Oh, hello. I heard my name.
It has the Loch Ness Monster in it.
Yes, thank you for remembering me. Thank you. I
know
I
you
think
like
about
the Loch Ness Monster.
We always think about you.
Thank you. I think about the Loch Ness Monster at least 17 times a day and the Yeti about 14 times a day. Cryptozoology is my life.
Yeah.
And
well, it has an interesting.
It doesn't turn out to be the real Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, a little bit of a wah. Watson. Yeah, sorry. I just did a play on wah. All right. Sorry, guys.
That's good. No. Always welcome to weigh in. Your appearances there.
Okay, thank you. I will.
Yes,
I will.
If there's any of these
I like crashing the party. I do. I like crashing the party.
Yeah,
I'll be back.
About these movies you want to comment
I
on,
will be back.
Jump in.
Okay. Thank you.
Please jump in.
Yeah.
All
right, so that was number.
A lot of times in the movies they will point to the fact that Holmes doesn't really fall in love.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have time for that. So it's always interesting to see a love interest in a movie, in a Sherlock Holmes movie, like The 7% Solution.
Right. Yeah.
And this one.
Yeah.
And it's tragic because Holmes really doesn't have time for that. He's busy.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Crime.
Yeah.
So a great performance also by the woman that plays the Queen Victoria at the end of the film.
Yeah.
He was not amused. It's a really fun movie to watch. It's just very entertaining from beginning to end. Again, it moves from it's kind of vignettes about Holmes's life, and it kind of moves from story to story to story, and finally you get it all kind of tied together at the end. And so it's a really different take on Holmes and a very fun movie.
Mm-hmm.
What was your number 4?
So my number 4 was The Hound of the Baskervilles, with Peter Cushing and Andre Morel. So we already kind of discussed that, but yeah, it's always delightful to see Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing together in a movie. I mean, those two are just the dynamic duo. I'm actually
Mr.
kind of
Holmes, I don't think I
surprised.
like your tone. Go and enjoy your kidney pie.
I'm almost surprised that. Well, maybe not. I shouldn't be surprised, but I almost thought it would be, Christopher Lee playing Holmes and Peter Cushing playing Watson. That would have been an interesting combination. But no, Cushing is the better Holmes. Uh, I have seen Lee as Holmes, and yeah, it's not quite there. Um,
Yeah.
I love the way the movie starts. I love that they give you the whole, how the legend of the Hound began and all that,
Mm-hmm.
and how they tie it back at the end
Yes.
with the big revelation.
Right.
You're right. The Hound was absolutely terrifying, and yeah. So this is every now and again you can
And
tell
without
that Hammer,
CGI.
and without CGI, yeah.
I mean, the Hound
Um,
was terrifying in Sherlock when they did the
mhm.
Hound of the Baskervilles, but it was CGI. You knew it was CGI.
Yeah. Um, so anyway, if you're going to see any version of
Of the
Hound of the
Hound of the
Baskerville,
Baskervilles.
I highly recommend this one, and the one on Sherlock as well. But this one it really just tops all of them. And like I said, there's like 20 different versions of this movie.
Yeah, if you see this
This
one, you don't
story.
have to watch the Nigel Bruce Basil Rathbone one because it's
Yeah.
basically the same movie. It's basically the same script. Um,
Or the one with Stuart Granger, which I saw on YouTube not too long ago. Just to refresh, and like,
you
so I
know,
wonder,
I
'cause I
had
haven't seen it.
forgotten completely and totally forgotten, and for a good reason.
Yeah.
That particular Holmes, yes, Stuart Granger playing Holmes.
Yeah.
It was about the time that he did the Wild Geese. He was the bad guy in the Wild Geese.
Yeah.
Which, and yeah, it was just no.
It was one of those
No.
movie of the week, ABC movie of the week or something.
Alan Quartermain, yeah, okay,
yeah.
but Sherlock Holmes, no.
And there was
remember
another
who his
one.
Watson was.
There was another version that I saw with Richard Roxburgh as Holmes of that same story of it. But anyway.
But it was weak.
All right. So what was your number 5?
Number 5, we're going back to Basil Rathbone. It was a tie between The Hound of the Baskervilles and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, which are the first two Basil Rathbone movies that were done by 20th Century Fox before they sold the property to Universal Studios.
Right.
So these are actually done on big budgets. The sets are humongous and really ornate, and they do all the costume and everything, and so you feel Victorian England in them.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful takes on Holmes, and might I add, I've seen some of the original sketches from Strand Magazine of Sherlock Holmes. The character Sherlock Holmes was, and basically it's Basil Rathbone. That's why they chose Basil Rathbone, I think.
Yeah.
In
Definitely
the beginning, at 20th Century Fox, because he looks like the sketches you saw of Holmes in Strand Magazine, which was where the stories showed up at.
Yeah.
I think Peter Cushing is a good second as far as the look of Holmes. Jeremy Brett, again, has the look. And definitely has the attitude. And even Cumberbatch to some extent. I mean, a little longer hair, but yeah, okay.
No, more modern times. Yeah.
Yeah. So The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and we need to talk about this because we haven't talked about Moriarty that much.
Right, yeah.
In The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is the best incarnation of Moriarty, I think, of any of the films.
Yeah.
This was a surprise to me because I hadn't seen this film until this week. It was George Zucco, the B actor from the Universal films, actually, the B actor.
Yeah.
So, and he's in this one as just a stupendously written Moriarty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get so many levels of this character. And I'll be honest with you, Ian McKellen would probably make a fantastic Moriarty. He's just got that kind of feel about him when he performs.
Right. Yeah.
He's a brilliant actor, and again, this is supposed to be a brilliant character. The only good thing I can say about Sherlock Holmes in New York was that John Huston, the director, Angelica Houston's father, played Moriarty in that, and he is so slimy and sleazy in that. He is so much fun to watch. He's pushing little kids around.
Yeah.
He's trying to escape from Holmes, and his hair gets messed up, and it's pointing in all different directions. He's just slimy and sleazy. He's just really wonderful to watch in that movie if you get a chance to see it.
Yeah.
But Patrick Renee is trying to be Nigel Bruce in that. He's playing it for laughs, trying to. He played it seriously when he was with Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just can't get past the fact that it's Roger Moore's Holmes. But yeah, George Zucco's got my vote for the best Moriarty ever so far. Paul Freeman was a pretty good Moriarty, and without a clue. You recognize him as Belloc from the Raiders of the Lost Ark. He plays Moriarty in that one. But the film is just such a departure from the original Holmes, canon that, you just can't get past that. And again, most of it's played for laughs.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is, again, it's a toss-up between the best Basil Rathbone with Hound of the Baskervilles. If you really like Hound of the Baskervilles, you should watch the Basil Rathbone version because it's interesting. Well written. The villain in that kind of changes a little bit, and I can't remember the original story if that was the name of the villain, but in any case, I'll try not to spoil it too much for people. Like you said, there's a reveal at the end of the 58 version of the Hound of the Baskervilles that's kind of different from the original Sherlock Holmes story.
Yeah.
So it'll keep you on your toes, keep you surprised. And again, I don't want to spoil those. So that was my number 5. Again, I had to give Rathbone his due. I mean, he is a really good Sherlock Holmes.
Oh yeah.
Very dignified, brilliant mind.
I don't, from what I've read, he started to get tired of playing Holmes after so many iterations, and so he
was getting typecast.
Yeah, he was getting typecast, and after a while, and you could tell that something changed. Because, I don't know if you remember, but after a while, he started sporting this weird hairdo where he had these curls on the side of his head, and I remember those, and I'm like, what's up with that? Why? And it's just, it's just like, he just didn't care anymore. He's just basically going through the motions. He's still wonderful.
It was just a paycheck by, after like the first 6 or 7, then they started throwing in the Nazis and the Oxton Creeper, played by Rondo Hatton.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. And the script started getting, just worse and worse. And so I could tell.
On a side note, too, if younger people are like, I don't want to watch those movies because they're in black and white, many of them were colorized. Basil Rathbone, there's like a handful of them were colorized, like 5 or 6 of them. So they did colorize some of them. They're not the better ones, but you can see Nigel Bruce doing his thing and Basil Rathbone playing Holmes, in color if you're looking for that. I think The Woman in Green is one of them.
Right.
Makes sense. So the public domain, some of them fell into the public domain, and a company went and decided to colorize them, make it in their own.
Well, the character of Sherlock Holmes himself is in the public domain now. So, which is why we get so many different versions. Okay, so my number 5 is The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which we already went over. I do like, you liked Robert Stevens as Holmes.
Yes.
I didn't as much. I mean, I think he's a good Sherlock Holmes. I don't know, something about his voice that kind of annoys me.
He seems a little uptight.
He's a little uptight.
But you would think Holmes would be that way, being as brilliant as he is. And again, everyone around him is just, I'm surrounded by idiots.
Yeah, that kind of thing. but love Christopher Lee as Mycroft.
Hmm.
He's a little thinner than the Mycroft of the books and the
Yeah,
stories.
Mycroft's supposed to be fat,
He's
actually.
supposed to be girthy.
Yeah.
And you've seen other I mean, what they do
And what's
portray him that
funny is
way.
Mark Gatiss is tall and thin, and he's the writer, a creator and writer of Sherlock, and he
Yeah.
is Mycroft in those
Right,
shows.
right, yeah, yeah.
But in the Abominable Bride, when they take him back to the 1800s, Mycroft is huge. They put him in a big fat suit, and he's huge, and he's eating all the time, and he's
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. I really like Robert Morley as Mycroft in
Mm.
in Study in Terror. I thought that was a probably one of the better portrayals of Mycroft.
Morley, you would think would be a perfect Mycroft, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But unfortunately, the rest of the movie is kind of a mess.
Yeah. And I think they were kind of trying to compete with the Hammer films with that version. It felt like it kind of leaned into the
You are correct,
more
sir.
horror, aspect of it, and all the blood and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
I get that too. Yeah.
So, but I thought John Neville did a really good job as Holmes in that one.
It's funny to see him young because I'm used to John Neville, the older actor, on the X
Right.
Files and playing Baron Munchausen, and he's
Baron
just an old
Munchausen,
crotchety
right.
kind of actor.
Yeah.
To see him as a young man and to see Judi Dench, young
I know.
in that is kind of a surprise. Kind of a surprise. Yeah, she got a nice earthy quality about her.
Yeah. Oh, we were talking about Murder by Decree, which has a very similar plot, Jack the Ripper thing.
Right, Jack.
I gotta say, I did like. It was a brief cameo by Susan Clark in it as one of the victims, Genevieve Bujold, and John Gielgud as the prime minister.
No.
And like I said, Anthony Quayle was in both movies as well, but in this one he played the real life chief of police, head of Scotland Yard at the time, Sir Charles Warren. So they did include a little bits of actual Ripper lore in this version than they did in Study in Terror. But anyway,
yeah, he was a real weenie head in that.
Yeah, and it was directed by Bob Clark, who I believe also directed Porky's of all things. So that was kind of a switch.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, and it has a nice. I mean, it's very atmospheric, and I think that's another thing that kind of drew me.
I like the scenes at the beginning at the Opera House when they're in the opera. I really like those a lot. Those scenes.
Yeah.
It's something you don't get in Holmes movies that much. You get the study and him playing violin and smoking and doing experiments and stuff, but you don't get him out and about that much. It was one of the things I liked about, even though they went really crazy with it, this Private Life of Sherlock Holmes when they went to the ballet.
We went to the ballet and he's bored to tears.
He gets invited backstage,
right, to meet the prima ballerina. Yeah, that was awesome. Great. And Watson dancing with all the ballet, the choir.
Don't give away too much now. Don't give away too much.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a fun movie. Really, it is a fun movie, and I was reading that there was actually another scene or segment in Private Life that wound up getting cut because it would have made the movie just way too long, but. Something about it was more of a locked room mystery, and there's only just a few stills. The actual film, I think, has been lost. So, but Wilder, when they put the assembly together, said, this thing is way too long, and plus it takes away.
We gotta cut something.
We got to cut something, and it takes away from the whole other mystery, and so they decided to cut that segment out. So, anyway. But I do love the beginning, the very, very beginning, the credit sequence where they go to the bank and they get the cash box, not the cash box, but the strong box, all that straight out of Conan Doyle. He talked about,
Mm.
you know, there's all these other stories that I wrote, but you know, they're not to be opened until our death and all that. So,
Right.
so I like, and they do the same thing when they do it in the book, but not in the movie. Same thing in 7% Solution. That
Mhm.
it's a untold tale by you know, Watson.
Watson.
So, all right,
Not Conan Doyle, but Watson.
Watson. Yeah. Honorable mentions.
We've mentioned most of my honorable mentions, except for the stuff that goes really off the rails, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Okay.
What are your honorable mentions?
All right. Well, one of them is Young Sherlock Holmes,
Okay.
which was kind of a very kind of Steven Spielberg kind of thing.
Well, he produced it.
Yeah, and you can tell,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, and it always reminds me a little bit of Harry Potter now. And for a while, I thought Chris
Yeah,
Columbus
before
had
Harry
directed it,
Potter,
but
there
it
was Young
wasn't.
Sherlock Holmes. It
But
definitely has
yeah,
that kind of feel to it.
yeah, the school and all that. But I thought it was an interesting portrayal of the younger Holmes, although it's, you know, it goes completely against canon, because Holmes and Watson meet as adults in the stories. In this one, they're supposedly schoolmates. Uh,
I
and there's
I
a
don't know
surprise.
why I hated that film. I just
Really?
hated it.
Hmm.
I just couldn't get into that film, and the CGI back then. It was just when CGI was just starting. The CGI
Yeah,
back then was just
it has. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It has the distinction of being one of the first movies to have a
yeah,
CGI, fully rendered CGI, the stained
yeah,
glass knight. Yeah,
right.
I enjoyed it for what it was.
I think the only thing I
But
enjoyed about it was the scene where Holmes blows the blowgun from the other end and it sends the dart back into the person's throat.
mhm.
I think that was. I was like, okay, that's fun.
I I like the hallucination scene with Watson
Mm,
imagining all these pastries and things
mm.
marching up and trying to kill him or something, or eat him or whatever. Um, yeah,
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 hallucination was a big part of that.
yeah. So, and well, I won't spoil it for anyone who actually wants to watch this movie. I mean,
Mm.
I don't think it's a bad movie. You know, but it's not a
As
great.
a real Holmes fan, yeah, I just thought it was too
Yeah,
far off the
yeah,
rails for me.
yeah,
I just didn't. I just couldn't get into it.
yeah. Um,
I
and one of
should
my
probably
other,
give it a second look.
yeah, and one of my other honorable mentions and one of my favorites is
Mhm.
a movie called "They Might Be Giants."
That was on my honorable mentions list. I was going to mention that
Okay,
too. Great
I
performances
uh,
by George C.
George C.
Scott,
Scott,
who's a guy who
Joanne
thinks he's Sherlock
Woodward,
Holmes,
yeah, yeah,
and Joanne
and
Woodward, who's actually a real Dr. Watson, and that's how she
right,
gets close to him. That's how she gets him to accept her when she finally
yeah,
tells him, "My name's Mildred Watson." Oh, you're a
yeah,
Dr. Watson. God, I've been waiting for you.
yeah,
That's a
and just
delightful movie.
yeah, it's just a fun movie. And like I said, George C. Scott. I mean, it's George C. Scott. You
One
know,
year after Patton doesn't get much better than that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Great supporting cast too. Jack
right,
Gifford is in it.
yeah,
Severn Darden. Just wonderful supporting cast too.
yeah,
And
and
the woman from the Golden Girls. She played Blanche Dubois.
oh, oh, yeah.
Rue
Uh,
McClanahan.
Rue
Is that what?
McClanahan. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
She's got a great supporting character in it too. She's the wife
yeah,
of his brother who's trying to commit him because he thinks he's Sherlock Holmes.
right, yeah, yeah,
And she likes it. She's like, I like him being Sherlock Holmes. He's great.
yeah,
But the funny part is Joanne Woodward at first, she's fascinated by him, but she just so easily falls into his mania throughout the film, and it's gradual,
right,
um,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, it's just again, it's a wonderful movie about the human condition,
hmm
and And again, it's fun because there is a Sherlock Holmes element to it.
Right. All right. So my other honorable mention is the two the ones with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law as Holmes and Watson. I wanted to include them, but I mean, they're okay. I do enjoy. I mean, I did enjoy. I thought they were interesting.
Jude Law, yeah, he's an okay Watson.
I thought, yeah. I mean, he's you know, to me he's one of the more believable Watsons, next to Martin Freeman, because he's not just, you know, he's not portrayed as less than Holmes. You know, he's a doctor. You know, he's a veteran. And yeah, I think it's more than a match. The plots are kind of silly. The first one kind of leaned into the supernatural, though I do love
Yeah, see,
strong.
that was the one thing that I didn't like about him too, was that they just weren't written that well. When the second one came out, I was like, I can't believe they made a sequel.
Yeah. No,
I like Robert Downey Jr. I think he's a brilliant actor. I think he's really good. Okay, I bought him as Charlie Chaplin when he did Chaplin, you know,
yeah,
with the British accent and everything. But I did not buy him at all, not for 1 second, as Sherlock Holmes. Sorry.
it's fine.
Grips. Ooh.
I do like. Yes, David. Sherlock Holmes originally based on novels and short stories.
Yeah.
4 novels and hundreds, I don't know, 60 short stories, I think.
Dozens of short stories in
dozens of short
Strand
stories.
magazine.
Yeah, I should have done my show and tell. I have a copy of a bound version that it's reproductions of the actual Strand magazine versions of with the Sidney Paget illustrations.
Oh wow!
I bought it many years ago. It's just,
that's another thing that I would like to point out. In Without a Clue, Peter Cook, in one of his most brilliant performances, I think, plays the head of Strand magazine, and Watson tries to sell him on the fact that Holmes is gone now and he's going to be the crime doctor. Peter Cook, his reactions to that is just priceless. They're just wonderful.
oh, it's funny that you mentioned that, because Peter Cook played Sherlock Holmes opposite Dudley Moore as Watson in a version of The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was a comedy version. Yeah.
I bet that was good.
It was
I
more
can
of a
certainly see
satire.
Peter Cook doing Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, and it's and he almost played it straight, if I remember correctly. Dudley Moore is much more of a
right, comic relief Watson.
more of a comical Watson, exactly. Yeah. All right, so those are my honorable mentions.
Okay, I have to mention one more, which is really off the rails, and that is Sherlock Holmes's smarter brother.
Oh, yes, Gene Wilder
played Mycroft Holmes. And
right.
It's got the most of the Mel Brooks people in it. Madeline Kahn is in it. Marty Feldman. It's a fun movie. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's spoofery. Home spoofery.
Yeah. So, alrighty then. Well, there you are.
And there's
Mrs. Hudson.
And there it is. Mrs. Hudson.
I just wait till you guys do it. Okay, do you guys want to do some Watson impersonations or Sherlock Holmes impersonations before we go?
That was Robert Stevens yelling for Mrs. Hudson.
Yes, I know. But I would like to, if you guys want to play off each other, like do Sherlock and Watson and then flip it. I think that'd be really funny.
Okay.
I think that would be funny.
Well, you know, I never actually said elementary, my dear Watson, in any of the stories. That was an invention of the cinema. Mostly I said, Watson, where's the cocaine?
True. And I would write the stories and embellish a little bit, writer's license, of course.
more like a lurid, penny dreadful trash. Turn my simple experiments into
That's it.
rationalization.
I'm leaving. I'm gone. I leave you behind, Holmes. You arrogant bastard.
All right then. Mrs. Hudson?
Now you're supposed to flip it. Now I want to hear.
You know, I've never played Holmes before.
You're gonna
because
play him
I'm
right
always
now.
a Watson, you know.
Play him right now. That's what I want to.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Seriously, we must end the show. It is imperative. I must get my supper.
Well, I don't know, Holmes. Oh, supper, yes. Right.
What are you, Nigel Bruce?
Yes, what? I'm
You're
sorry,
waffling,
Holmes.
Watson. Stop it.
What's really funny is like so Rory, you're still doing the same like timbre in your voice that you do for Watson, but you're kind of more combative, you know. You're like more demeaning, I think. And then Manny, I thought it was interesting. His register went even lower when he was playing. It's a totally different Watson. Now I want to hear like both Watsons. If you guys were to argue, like just do it for 1 second. It's really funny. Because you're so different. You're so different. So just argue about something like, I don't know. Just think of anything.
Watson, did you eat the cookie or not?
Well, yes, I suppose. Cookie, yes. But
of course I knew you ate the cookie. I'm Sherlock Holmes, for crying out loud.
I ate the cookie, yes. I was hungry. You know.
And there's nothing wrong with that, Watson.
As long as you're honest with me. You're playing that fiddle all night, keeping me up for all hours, dragging me to all the worst places in London, across the world.
The worst places in London?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. Oh, there's always some bodies dead. Blood everywhere.
That's what I do, Watson. I solve crimes and murders, and unfortunately, we have to deal with a lot of nasty people.
That's true. All right.
That was like so brilliant. I love that.
Again,
when you're doing Holmes,
if you want to be brilliant, it's got to be scripted.
But it's just so great because they're so different. But they're so different. Like it's the same character, but the interpretations are so unique. It was just great. Thank you guys for indulging that. I thought that was awesome.
And anytime.
I appreciate that. Okay, well, who are you guys doing next? Who is the next?
Since we and see, there we go, making noise in the theater.
There you go.
Since we,
I'm putting away my pretzels.
Oh, Holmes, you and your bloody pretzels and crumbs everywhere, getting in my beard. Anyway,
I'm sorry they haven't created Funyuns yet.
They haven't created Funyuns.
Hard to get out of that. Well, since we switched things up and we're going to do Vincent Price on the 30th, we were going to do Disney movies next week, but since we already did Sherlock Holmes movies this week, I say we switch it up and we do director Stanley Kubrick's films next week.
Oh my goodness. Stanley Kubrick.
Yes, Kubrick.
All right. Well, there's some Halloween in there, The Shining, and
it's some
2001: A Space Odyssey. Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll bring Mr. Price in following week, and after that,
it's a very spooky season. We are in the spooky season right now. We're in the
must rewatch a lot of Stanley Kubrick.
Pumpkin spice everywhere.
Oh, pumpkin spice.
Do you guys like pumpkin spice or do you hate it?
The spice is the life.
Okay.
Spice is the life.
Okay, so next week, everyone tune in at the same time, and Stanley Kubrick will be the subject. That is awesome. I love that.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
All right, everybody. Have a good night, and thank you for joining us. Good night.
Adios. Thanks for watching this episode of Two Guys and Sometimes a Gal Talking About Movies. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell to get future episodes.